Evening, I'm the UK comic reviewer. I'm going to review this new Beano comic book from 1989. It's going to be the only Beano book I'll review. It's probably review at the moment because there are so many Beano books around. Um, if I get hold of some more, I probably will review more. Dennis the Menace and Nasher. Now, there's no Beano without Dennis the Menace and Nasher. They are the best known duo in the comics and comic annuals. Brilliant, brilliant, and there's no one who doesn't know who they are. Basically, they are so funny and so brilliant. Anyway, let's go on and see the other characters. You can see them all there. Dennis, obviously, there. Ivy the Terrible, Walter the Softy, and all the others. Minnie the Minx. Plenty of them there. So let's have a look at some of the strips. Over there, we've got Ivy the Terrible, Plug out of Bash Street Kids, Minnie the Minx, Dennis the Menace, and a couple of other characters there. It'll tell you who. I think that one's called Kung Fu Sid or something, that guy, and I think that one's called Mickey the Monkey, but we'll get to them later. And down there we've got one of the best known ones out of the Beano comic, who's still going strong today, Roger the Dodger. I used to love reading it, and I still do to this day. Love reading his comic strips. Best Street Kids, load of youngsters who used to cause their teacher no end of problems, and the poor lad there as well, Cuthbert Cringeworthy as he was known. And obviously their long-suffering teacher as well, who used to get into who used to be at the sticky end of the youngsters' pranks. Danny was actually the leader out of all of them, and you had Sid and Toots, who were the twins. You had Fatty, Plug, and Herbert, and other characters, and Smithy as well. There's actually a Smithy in Beezer, but we'll get to him when we review the Beezer. He's rather different to this guy, though. This guy was perhaps less intelligent than the other guys, but you know he was a cool character nonetheless, and sometimes used to actually get the upper hand on the others, which was cool to see. They had a train station there, apparently it closed, so the kids decided to chase after the teacher because they weren't very happy with him. Roger's Dodge Clinic, Roger the Dodger, obviously giving advice on how to dodge things. Really cool guy, one of the best Beano characters, one of the best comic characters, I think. And then you have Ivy the Terrible, who was this very young, sort of like infant, infant toddler character, who she was really, really cool and used to cause so many pranks and so many problems for her long-suffering parents, as you can see there. Here she's starting wants to have a party and wants it to be as rowdy as possible, but her mum decides to have other ideas, which Ivy's not too happy about down there, to basically let them all get along. And obviously Dennis the Menace and Nasher, I think they're starting a snakes and ladders thing there. Obviously they're going to play that against Walter the Softy. Now here, apples, stealing apples out of the apple tree. That was a staple for every comic book and comic, and it was just stealing apples out of the apple tree. That was a staple. And that story was used so many times. Back to the snakes and ladders again. Walter again. Walter apparently, because Walter was quite effeminate and sort of quite weak. Dennis used to pick on him Dennis and Menace used to pick on him rather a lot, and it was obviously obviously continues to this day. Walter, towards the end, he went through a number of character transitions. Dennis became more heroic in later comics, and Walter became more sort of snobby, and sort of like wanting to be sort of like superior and more intelligent than Dennis, and used to try and get the upper hand over him. It worked for him initially, but towards later ones, it didn't work so well. Because Dennis would often be seen as a hero, and he would always get the upper hand in the end. But that didn't happen here. In this one from this annual from 1989, another Roger's Dodge Clinic. Roger Dodger, he would often dodge his way out of things, or try and dodge to try and get the upper hand on things, or if he wanted to do something or had to do something initially that he didn't want to do, he would play dodges to try and get it done quicker. um, and he just and obviously he used to cause trouble as well. He wasn't evil. He wasn't quite as evil. He wasn't quite as naughty as what Dennis and Minnie the Minx, who I'll get to in a little while, was. He was more. He was more playing. He more liked to play tricks on everyone. Um, Unfortunately, it sometimes didn't end very well for him. Um, anyway, we'll go to a few more. There's Rasher as well, which was Dennis the Menace's pig. Big fat pig. I used to like that character as well. We've got Minnie the Minx, who was basically another Beano staple character. Um, Now, Minnie the Minx is, she was very naughty. Often she'd get into trouble. Very naughty girl. Um, but she was very, very funny to read. Her and Dennis, however, in the latest Beano offering, the 80s Minnie the Minx and the 80s Dennis the Menace, from when I was little, got married, and they had Dennis the Menace, the youngster. They had another young chap called Dennis the Menace. However, their father, they're not quite so strict with him as what Dennis the Menace's dad was, or indeed Minnie the Minx's dad was. So yeah, so it's transitioned quite a lot over the years, for various reasons that I won't go into. So often Minnie and Minx would usually get into quite a lot of trouble towards the end. Number 13, that was some sort of horror vampire monster type family. Really, really cool. I used to like reading them. Not quite sure what that is. Leap year. Don't know. Billy Whiz. Now this lad was so fast he could run around at the speed of light almost, and put Usain Bolt to shame. And he is just so quick. He's so cool as well. And he used to do impossible tasks very, very quickly indeed. Lord Snooty, some very well-off young lad who owned his own castle. Well, he didn't own his parents probably did, but they had their own castle, and he often used ingenuity through things to get certain tasks done, like mowing the lawn there, or having a moat race in one, I recall, and various other things. Pup Parade, basically the Bash Street Kids dogs or pups that they owned back then. Obviously, they're basically modelled on each character. They were quite fun. Another Roger Dodge Clinic. Little Monkey. Oh, that must have been that other guy. That was that other guy. Basically, a guy who looked like a monkey who was really, really funny, really, really cool, brilliant character. And Karate Sid. I wasn't Kung Fu Sid, it was Karate Sid, my apologies. Martial arts young lad, expert, who would use martial arts rather a lot, including at a bus stop, a bus queue, creating quite a number of problems there. Ball Boy, young lad who used to play football with his mates rather a lot and often would try and find ways to win, which sometimes worked but often didn't. And the girls, that's a terrible trio of Ivy the Terrible, Minnie the Minx, and Toots from the Bash Street Kids. So, obviously Minnie's dad decides doesn't like her being a tomboy and tells her to behave like a girl, and Ivy's and Toots' dad tell them the same thing, so they decide to behave like girls, and Walter Softy takes advantage to play pranks on them, but it backfires spectacularly because Ivy the Terrible. Because Ivy the Terrible, and she causes them no end of problems, as you can see. and obviously Toots playing tricks on Teacher because she was one of the Bash Street Kids. And Teacher's head actually going through the roof of his car. Somehow. And then they put Minnie and Toots put Ivy in a pram so she can play a prank on Dennis the Menace, which he obviously doesn't like at all. And then Toots decides to play a prank on the lads in the Best Street Kids and runs over all their feet. Then poor Calamity James ends up getting rather dirty. Number 13 get pranked as well, as does that lad. Don't know who he is, but he looks pretty cool. Lord Snooty gets a pranked as well. Ball Boy does as well. And they plead with their fathers to make them tomboys again. Everyone that they've pranked, that is. Calamity James again, that's that poor young lad who used to get such rotten luck and used to end up at the sticky end of everything. His friend Alexander Lemming there. And poor Calamity James used to get into so many problems. He poor lad. You just felt sorry for him, but obviously it was par for the course with him really. He would often end up at the sticky end of things because of his bad luck. That must be some Beano editor. They did animate themselves, the editors and the staff in Beano sometimes. Little monkey again. That young lad who looks like a monkey. Number 13 again. Ball Boy again, playing football in the snow for some reason. Can't think why. Roger's Dodge Clinic again. Nash's Dad's Army, some sort of pet dog's dad's something. Rasher again. Karate Sid again, the martial arts lad. And Little Plum. Now this guy was really, really cool. Basically a Native American young lad. Babyface Finlayson makes an appearance as well. Both cool characters. Like I say, Little Plum was a Native American lad who used to often try and get the upper hand on his family and get sort of recognised in his tribe. But Babyface Finlayson was another character who used to he used to be a sort of like a young lad crime wave. very much a delinquent young lad who often used to get in trouble with the police. Nasher and Nipper, Nasher being the father and Nipper being his pup. Nasher obviously teaching him to be as naughty as he is. And often the postman would often be at the sticky end of would often get to the sticky end of the two dogs. But not that time, but he did after a while there, with all of the things that Dennis's mum's ordered. Billy Whiz again, that really fast young lad, who can also run fast in snow. Might be the Terrible again. Biffo the Bear, another guy who was a Beano regular, but he was actually one of the main Beano characters before Dennis the Menace took over. They used to have like rhyming things and games, etc., to show to people to take part in, like sing along to them, take part in the games, and work out puzzles and everything. Roger the Dodger again, getting rather fat. And Dennis the Menace setting up a prank for Walter the Softy and all their his softy friends to fall into a little hole by the looks of it. As you can see, that's what happened. And obviously, Dennis Menace would often get into trouble with Dad because people who he pranked would often tell his dad, and that would land up with him in trouble. Best Street Kids again, poor Cuthbert getting things thrown at him, and he would be constantly because he was sort of like the top kid in the class. The other Best Street Kids would often get jealous of that and take it out on him. So yeah. And he would constantly do more and more and more and more work. And just to basically be the top kid in the class. And that's the end of it. As you can see, the Beano book. Brilliant start. Well worth buying. And well worth starting a collection of, because some of the older ones are cool and some of the newer ones are pretty cool as well. But we'll get more to them when I get a more recent one. Anyway, this was the UK Comic Reviewer. Thank you very much. Bye bye now.